Woo! Geographers, how we doing? Hopefully everyone's having a great weekend. We are here. We're going to be reviewing Unit 6 today. So hopefully people are doing well. Yeah, I'm excited. This is, I will say, a big unit. When I was making the stuff for this, I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot in this unit. So we're going to be going over a ton of stuff today. Remember, when we are seeing and talking about all this stuff, this is the ultimate review packet, but this is the CD. So this is part of the free part. If you want the CD, it's also in the description of this video. So right now, too, make sure you get the guide notes. I just uploaded them. So I saw some people asking in the chat, where are they? Where are they? I finished them right before the stream. They just got uploaded now. So there's a lot in here, a lot of concepts. But we are going to be going over the information in the first part of this stream that's going to be focusing on these items, because this is what College Board has said. This could be on the test. So again, this document here, if you've been with us in all the live streams, you're familiar with it. Here we have our wonderful course exam description. So the essential knowledge, the learning objectives, enduring understanding. This is all the information we need to know. And there's a ton. I mean, look at all these different things: inclusionary zones, urban renewal, gentrification, forms of government, friction, disamenity zones. We're going to be talking about all of it. So check it out. You can go all the way down to the ultimate review packet or the test packs, and you can get the guide notes right here. So these will go right along with the video. And these are also in those test packs too. So that test pack it's got like the AI one or the non-AI. It's got a bunch of multiple choice questions and also FRQs. There's like 700 multiple choice questions and I think like 143 individual task verbs. And then, yeah, so cool. All right, we're gonna get started. Let me know where people are from and we'll get this going. I got people from Minnesota. What else do we got? This is your worst unit. That's okay. My voice, you will have to tell me. We'll see if it fails. Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Dakota, Kentucky. Welcome back. You've been on here every single day. New York, Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, California. Awesome. Shout out to Mr. Williams class, Houston, Texas, Michigan. Welcome from Michigan, Florida, South Korea. Cool. All right, we're going to get started so we can make sure that we kind of respect all you guys' time. This is where the video is going to cut. So again, let's make sure we're following along. Let's start learning about urbanization and all these fun land use patterns. So put this up here. All righty. Cool. Woo. All right, if you're just joining us on YouTube, welcome back to the Mr. Sinn channel. Today, we're going to be talking about Unit 6, Urbanization, Cities and Urban Land Use Patterns. So this is going to be a cool unit. There is a lot in here, so make sure you get the guided notes. You can find that ultimate review packet, follow along, and take some notes. If you don't want to use my guided notes, no worries. You can use a notebook and a piece of paper. The more we handwrite and stuff, the better it is. Cool. So let's get started. Going on to our next question there. Real quick, as we're going, just a reminder, tomorrow, as a thank you. So if you don't want the packet, I don't care, not at all. But this is kind of a thank you to those who have gotten the packet. We're going to be doing an exclusive live stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. We're going to do Unit 7 then at the normal time at 7 p.m. So Unit 7 will be at 7 p.m. But at 3 p.m. tomorrow, I'm going to do a live stream just for people with the test packet or that ultimate review packet. And it's going to go over every theory and model. Now, if you've been watching all these live streams, we've already been talking about it, but this one is just specifically for that. We'll do a little Q&A and have some fun there. So if you're interested, by all means, check it out. They'll be in the packet tomorrow. So to find the stream, you'll have to go to the packet. So you'll go to the packet. That is tomorrow at 3 p.m. So May 5th, 3 p.m. So there you go. All righty. You just got the packet yesterday and you'd recommend it. It was very helpful. Good. I'm glad it was. Good. All right. So starting off, we're going to be talking about urban hearths here. We're looking at a variety of different things. We're talking about site and situation factors. This isn't a major thing to memorize on all the different stuff, but generally speaking, these are areas that originally we had larger population centers form. And a big reason why is because of their site and situation factors, which allowed then for economic development to occur, sedentary lifestyles to occur. And then we continue to see diffusion happen over time. Now, site and situation factors, we've been talking about this in other units. Remember, situation factors are relative. So we're looking at locations surrounding a place. These are these connections between different places. Site factors are thinking about characteristics that are specific to that location, to that place. So if I'm looking at like trade that's occurring, that's going to be more situation. If I'm looking at arable land, that's more of a site factor. So that would be something there to think about. Some people are asking about sedentary. Sedentary is we're staying in one spot. So yesterday for Unit 5, we talked about sedentary and nomadic lifestyles. Nomadic, we're on the move. So like pastoral nomads move with their animals. Sedentary farming would be like mixed crop livestock. We're staying in one area. So that would be sedentary. All righty. Next thing I want to highlight here, we got this AI picture here for you to think about, is we're about to go into a bunch of different types of cities. And one of the things that we're going to be seeing here is how changes in transportation, communication, population, migration, economic development, government policies all influence urbanization. And that's right from the CED. So we have to make sure we understand this. So over time, as we've continued to see more advancements in our technology, in our communication, in our infrastructure, remember infrastructure we'll talk about later. This is going to be our bridges, our roads, our public utilities, our electrical grids. These are things that allow our society to function. But as we've continued to see advancements in these, our cities have started to change. And their land use patterns have shifted. How we're building our cities has changed, where people are living. All of that is influencing here. So just you're going to see these themes throughout this video as we continue to look at it. So make sure you're kind of paying attention there. All right. Two terms that we need to be familiar with is megacity and metacity. So I got the definitions up there on the screen that you can see. One of the things, a megacity is going to have more than 10 million residents. A metacity is more than 20 million. So just have an understanding about that. Don't mix those up. So you want to make sure you keep them separate there. One thing to note is what we're seeing here is that the majority of this big economic, this big urban development that's starting to happen, we're starting to see more and more of these major cities shifting into semi-periphery areas or periphery. That can kind of connect into our demographic transition from Unit 2, because what we're starting to see is this big population growth is happening. So we're seeing some changes in the world right now when we're looking at our global landscape here. So something just to kind of think about as we start to see some of our core countries, some of these big cities, they're not growing as fast as some of our other areas are. All right. So we're about to get into a bunch of different urban and rural kind of settlements. And one of the things that we have to understand that is happening is as more economic development has occurred, and as we've started to see people move farther in that demographic transition model, we've seen this concept of urban decentralization. And this is a movement of a population moving away from urban areas. They're going to the peripheral. Essentially, what starts to happen then is power and money and some of these decisions start shifting as way. They're shifting away from that urban core and going to things like the suburbs. And this is where we're going to get into edge cities and boom burbs and exurbs. So urban decentralization, if you see that on the AP test, it's referencing this shift that's occurring as the population moves away from these urban areas, resulting in them power and money shifting along with that. Another thing that you're going to see on the AP test for this unit is urban sprawl. So remember, urban sprawl is where we have these cities continue to expand. Let me know in the chat, what are these cities? Anyone know what these cities are? Anyone have an idea? It's the same city. So let me know if anyone knows it. Also, just a reminder again, I'm not really looking at the chat when I'm going over the notes. So I do have, yes. Oh, I almost had. There we go. That was the first one I saw. It is Tokyo. So this would be Tokyo. So we can see this urban sprawl. So Tokyo. Yep. Not New York, not Seattle. You don't need to memorize that this is Tokyo. This is just an example of urban sprawl. So urban sprawl is a vocab concept you want to be familiar with here. We can see this city here has just continued to grow. So urban sprawl is this unrestricted growth. It's an expansion. Generally, then we start to see it replacing other areas and landforms there. So like agricultural lands all of a sudden now are becoming part of this urban area. Now, one of the things that we see happen as suburbanation happens, as sprawl continues, we see again this decentralization occurs. And we have some new land use forms, boom burbs, exurbs, and edge cities. You can see the definition here if you're taking notes. But a boom burb, remember, we have this rapidly growing area. Rapidly growing suburban area, and it develops kind of its own unique identity. In exurb is going to be a settlement that is going to be kind of outside of that suburban area. So a suburban area is not going to have the highest density. So it's going to be outside there. And these are going to, again, remain fairly connected to that metro area, to that urban area. Exurbs, remember, typically have a really low population density. So they'll have a lot larger of lot sizes, so people will have more access to land, and there's less goods and services. So they're going to be connected to that urban area, or maybe a place like an edge city, because they don't have as many of their own goods and services. So you'll have to drive more there. In Edge City, then, if you're taking notes, I'll put it back up there, is going to be our settlement here that has kind of its own economic district and generally located by some beltway or major highway. So this would be like a beltway, major highway here, this beltway kind of going across here. So Edge cities often have a really high concentration of businesses, shopping centers, different goods and services. They're a little bit more almost independent. They still will have some things that they're lacking. They'll have to connect back to that urban core, but they're starting to have more specialization that's occurring. And so these are important to understand the concept. So on the test, let's say you get a scenario or a picture or an image. If you can understand the terms and kind of what's happening with life in these areas, the amount of goods and services, the density, then you could connect to any example that the College Board throws at you because you understand the concepts there. Another concept that you want to be familiar with is a world city. These are cities that are going to be connected to other cities, and it's going to be through a variety of linkages and networks. So these are cities that have major, significant influences on global politics, economies, and culture. Let me know in the chat. I'll quick look back at the chat. What would be an example of a world city? So do we have an example of a world city? So let's see here. What do we got? London. London would be an example of a world city. Yes. New York would be an example of a world city. Correct. Yeah, a lot of New Yorks, a lot of Londons. Tokyo. Tokyo. Yes, some people are saying countries. Remember, it has to be actually Paris it has to actually be a city, not a country. But these are connected. And these cities, if something happens in these cities, it will generally have a ripple effect across the world, and especially in the countries that they're located in. These also too will act as kind of in the hierarchy of cities. So remember, if we're talking about like diffusion and a hierarchical diffusion, these will be kind of that top point of power. And then we'll see like diffusion occur downwards. So like a fashion trend starts in Paris, eventually it goes to New York City, then eventually it goes to the surrounding areas. So these are very influential cities. If something happens in one, there's going to be this ripple effect that's going to occur. Another thing that I want to make sure you understand and kind of connecting back, linkages. Again, you might see this term. I mentioned it yesterday on our Unit 5, but these are just these connections between different places, these industries. So think of communication, migration, these goods and flows of services, but linkages would be our airports. We have connections that are made, and it allows for diffusion to occur. Excuse me. My voice is definitely kind of losing it a little bit. All right. Sorry. Going on to our size and distribution. So here we're looking at a variety of different cities. You want to be familiar with the primate city and the rank size rule. So these are two that you want to be familiar with. I have an example up there of both. All right. Woo. Just had some water. That helps. Break of bulk points. I realized I mentioned it. We will talk about that for Unit 7. I'm just using vocab to connect things. I am sick. My voice is slowly going, but that's okay. We're going to power through. All right. So primate city, though, this is where we have the largest city is twice the population of that second largest city. Now, one thing to note here, again, it's important to understand, like, so what's the implication of this? What's happening here? Well, a primate city, if we have one city that really has the majority of the population, they have the majority of goods and services. They have the majority of opportunities. That means we have some unequal economic development occurring here. Residents of that state are going to have to travel farther to be able to get goods and services. If anything happens to that primate city too, that state is going to be in trouble. South Korea has a primate city. Mexico has a primate city. If I make this full screen quick, I should have made these bigger and separated it so you could see it a little easier. But here's the population for like Mexico and Mexico City, significantly larger than Mexico's other cities there. So this would be a primate city. On the other hand, rank size rule. We have this kind of graphic that I took from one of my videos here. We're looking at that largest city. The population is kind of to the nth degree. You're not going to have to do math on this test. So don't worry about the math, but understand like the concept. So for here, our first city, that second largest city, is going to be half the population of the largest. The third is a third. The fourth is a fourth. The fifth is a fifth. What this is showing is that we have more kind of just even development. Our goods and services will be more spaced out. One city, yes, we still have a largest city, but it doesn't have as big of an impact on the entire place. We have a lot more goods and services dispersed throughout our state, which means generally more economic development has occurred. We have a little bit more diversity in different things, and diversification of where money and goods and services are located, which by spreading it out allows more access to different citizens. So that would be something just to understand there when we're looking at the primate city and the rank size rule. So those definitely could come up. Another thing to realize is this concept of interdependence. And I've mentioned interdependence in some of our previous reviews. And again, it's a vocab term that's not necessarily like a theory or anything, but it connects to a lot. This is just talking about this reliance, these connections of different groups, of people, of organizations, regions, of states. So when something is interdependent, like when we eventually get into Unit 7 tomorrow, we're looking at global trade. That means that things are connected and that we rely on each other. So if I have an interdependence with another country, I'm relying on them, they're relying on me. And realize cities also can have interdependence. So I wanted to clarify again, interdependence, it's this mutual reliance between groups and organizations or regions where we depend on each other. All right. Up next, we're going to get into size, distribution, and impacts, and we're going to start with the gravity model. We last talked about this in our Unit 2 video when we were looking at Ravenstein's laws of migration. But remember with the gravity model, I'll quick put it on the board for you, or on the screen, not the board. We're not actually in class right now. On here, this is the gravity model. We are looking at the impact that distance has and also the size of all of our cities. So when we're talking here, notice that the larger our city is, the bigger the pull, the more opportunities that they're going to have. And so the smaller has less opportunities, less people are interested in going there. And so even if City 1 and City 2 here are farther away, they actually have a stronger pull factor. More people are going to be motivated to go back and forth here because there's more opportunities compared to City 2 and 3. Even though they're closer, there's less opportunities there. People aren't as interested in connecting. So understand that when we're looking at this, this can impact cities and how they are developing and the interactions that they occur. So those world cities, those primate cities are going to have a lot of pull factors. A lot of people are going to be visiting these areas. They're going to have a lot of influence. Those smaller areas like an exurb, not as many people are going to be interested in that. Again, you're still going to have some, but not as many. Also, too, just a quick highlight. Notice how these arrows go both ways for all of them. This is showing that counter, that migration stream. So Ravenstein noticed this in Unit 2. Whenever we are continuing to have interactions, so if we have a migrant going from one place to another, they start to interact, and eventually it motivates people to go back. These areas are connected. All right. Let's go on to our next part here, which is going to be Kristall central place theory. Again, I will get to chat. I'll get to super chats and all that. Just right now, I'm focusing on the notes. So I'm focusing on going over the notes. If you're saying stuff, I apologize. I'm not really looking at it, but I will go back and look at them. I'll look at it later. All right. So first part of the central place theory I want to highlight is two terms, threshold and range. And to get a little interaction, anyone know threshold and range? What is the difference of these concepts? So we're talking about the central place theory, threshold and range. These can connect to a variety of different things. So now looking at the chat, what do we got here? Threshold and range. Does anyone remember? Let's see. Range, the maximum distance people are going to travel. Yes. So it's that distance people will travel for a certain good or a certain service. So those are definitely going to be with range. Threshold, let's see. Threshold is going to be how many people are needed to support it. So if we're talking about a store, how many people are needed to actually support that store or that business? So range, again, is that distance. Threshold is the amount. And the cool thing here is it tells us a lot about different companies and different services and businesses. This is why, for example, you will see so many McDonald's and so many Subways and Starbuckses in an urban area. Their range is really small. They're convenience products. People aren't going to travel that far. If it's convenient to them, they'll go. And so their range is actually really small. So it'll seem like weird because you're like, well, why is there so many in the same store in one city? I mean, how many Starbucks do we really need in a city? But they're actually in their own kind of regions there. They're functional regions because, again, we have that center point, that node. So remember, functional regions, that's unit one, connecting back. All this stuff connects. So that would be why. The threshold there again, too, one thing to point out is for our threshold, these are the people that are actually going to be going to this area. So if I'm a business that's going to be selling, like if I'm Tesla and I'm selling these expensive cars, my threshold, I need to have a certain amount of people that are in that range, but I also need to have a certain level of economic status. So there's different components that could go into threshold when we're looking at medium income. We're going to use a lot of our quantitative data there. So like the census information to understand. So businesses use all these things to decide where they should open up a new store. Now, the central place theory doesn't just connect to businesses and services. We can also connect it to cities and urban hierarchy. So I want to show the central place theory here. Don't get overwhelmed when we're looking at it. So generally what Kristaller noticed is when we're looking at our urban hierarchy, so when we're looking at how cities, towns, market towns, villages, all these different things are ranked. And again, here, urban hierarchy, we're ranking by the size, the influence of our settlements. So like cities are going to have a higher population, more opportunities, more services. Here, they're going to be creating like a region. They have a lot of pull factors. Notice that on the bottom of our hierarchy is like villages. And notice when we're looking at this, they're all surrounding either like a market town or a town or the city. They have the least goods and services. They have the least pull factors. And because they have the least goods and services, they need to be connected to a larger settlement so that they can get the support they need. And so we can see as we expand farther away from our city, generally our nodes here are going to be these larger settlements because they have more goods and services that can support. And Kristaller used the hexagon so that way everything like kind of perfectly aligned. If you watch my video on YouTube, or if you did, I talked about like the South. I researched a couple different studies where I looked at the American South and how it developed and grew and actually kind of connects into Kristaller central place theory. So we can use Kristaller central place theory to understand the location of different settlements. We can use it to understand the location of different businesses, this range, this threshold. It's all dealing with the population size. It's dealing with our goods and services. So understand that our spatial distribution of settlements and goods and services can connect into this theory. So it's a really cool theory that looks at a variety of things and gets used in real life by a variety of different people. All right, let's go on to our next part, which is everyone's favorite part, the urban models. Yes. So for time's sake, I'm going to give you just really quick summaries of these. I'll leave the models full screen on the screen so you can just see them while I'm talking. So I won't have my face on during this part. But there's 7 different urban models that we got to review. And one thing when I'm going over them that I want you to focus on, one, think about how these models maybe have changed. Are they still as accurate? Are they not as accurate? That could be like explain the degree question on an FRQ. Also, too, what is happening with density? What's happening with technology? What's happening with our infrastructure? Each of these are approaching things in a different way. And eventually, when we get into some of like Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and East Asia, also focus on some of those historical and political influences as we're looking at like colonialism and imperialism and how they have shaped some of our cities' spatial distributions. So first model coming up. Here we go. So notice right away, we got that CBD. This is our concentric zone model. So generally here, what we're seeing, that CBD is going to be the highest density. As we move out, you can see our density is decreasing. Over time, what starts to kind of happen here is we have a lot of different public and private services that are going to be surrounded. They're going to be in that CBD area. The older homes are kind of surrounding it. The newer developments, the newer homes are going to be located away from that CBD. So they're going to be located kind of out here, the zone of better residence. If we're talking about out here outside, this would be people that live outside of this urban area, but they are going to commute in. So they're commuting into that urban area. So that's one of the things to kind of point out for here. That next better residence generally has those newer homes. And oftentimes, too, because the density is lower out here, they're going to be a little bit more dispersed. So you're more likely to have a single family home with like a front yard and a backyard. Now, our next model that we're going to look at is the Hoyt sector model. A big focus here. We still have our CBD. We also, too, and just quick take this off so it's not blocking anything. We still have that CBD. Oh, notice now, though, right down the middle here is this transportation. And surrounding this area, too, is industry. So you think about like a big highway cutting through a city. And what is located on that highway? Well, oftentimes car dealerships, a lot of restaurants, different stores. A big reason for this is because it's really easy to get goods in and out of this area. It's also very easy for citizens to access these businesses since we are right off of this highway. So it's very easy to access there. So transportation is a big component. This model kind of highlights that, how with infrastructure being developed in transportation, how that has changed the spatial layout of cities. So that's something to kind of figure out and think about. Today, we kind of, again, have seen this model start to become dated too, just because our transportation systems have continued to update. And also, again, the CBD has lost some of its importance as we've continued to see more people work from home and newer methods of communication starting to adopt. Our next one is a multiple nuclei model. So this one here, we have multiple kind of CB. We have our main CBD, but we have multiple nodes. Think of it that way, not CBDs, nodes. So these center points. And generally what's happening is people who work in these areas are going to gravitate around them. So each node here is actually going to attract and push away different individuals. So if we're looking at jobs that generally maybe lower income individuals are working at, they're going to gravitate and live near that area. If we're talking about like a hospital or office buildings, we're going to see people who work in those sectors gravitate and work near there. So we can see, depending on where you're living, we can see kind of nodes here, and then people start to gravitate around here. So we still have that CBD. This model does a lot of a better job of kind of highlighting some of the complexity that happens in our spatial layouts as our cities continue to advance. All right, our next one is the galactic model. So Star Wars Day, so the Galactic Empire. Woo, May 4th. Here we go. Got to go watch Bad Batch. But anyways, here again, this model is actually factoring in transportation and also technologies. One thing to note, this is one of the models too that actually kind of highlights edge cities, these areas that are going to kind of develop on this beltway, this big kind of interstate that's happening right around here. So a little bit more complexity here. Again, this allows for people to get in and out of the cities in that urban area. So something to think about. Infrastructure is a big thing here. City of Atlanta kind of follows this model. So in my video, I actually kind of highlighted the map, showed the different parts of it. We can also see too, again, we have different industries and services that are being offered at different parts here. So these edge cities, these areas kind of specialize. So we have some spots that are connected to like commercial, industrial. We can see office spaces. So again, highlighting a little bit more contemporary city structures. All right, next model I'm going to highlight is the Latin American city model. One thing to remember here, we can see the impact of colonization. So we can see this influence of Europeans coming in, particularly with the layout here. So this market, this CBD here, during the colonial era, when a lot of cities were being set up, they were always centered around this like central plaza, this square. And there we had government buildings, religious buildings. And a big component of that was because the conquistadors actually believed God should be the focus of all these societies. So is at the center point there. So that's why a lot of these cities still have a church, a big church in these areas. We can also see too, realize this is a unique thing. We have this spine connecting outward. So we're going to have generally some more higher end places here. We might see some spots of like gentrification. We'll talk more in depth about that a little later on. But that kind of connects back to some of these segregated neighborhoods based on wealth, again, connecting back to colonization and history there. So understand that this layout is kind of unique. The disamenity zone, when we're seeing that, so these are these areas. I saw some people kind of asking about that. This is an area that residents are living in extreme poverty. Generally, they're lacking infrastructure like water, power, sewage. So we have extreme poverty here, a lot of lack of just basic necessities. We might have some squatter settlements there or informal settlements, people who don't actually have an ownership to the land. And that kind of gets into our next concept here. So informal settlements, squatter settlements, favelas, there's a variety of different ways we can word it, but these are areas in where we have people living and they don't actually have legal authorization. So they're generally going to lack this basic infrastructure. We also might see more people part of the informal economy here, a concept from Unit 7. So the informal economy, remember, is talking about jobs that are not protected, they're not regulated or monitored by the government. And so this generally is happening in informal settlements. So informal settlements are going to come up in the next couple of models that we have. So I want to just kind of highlight that term in particular because you're going to keep seeing it. All right, we'll go on to our next model. I realize there's a ton of models, so I apologize there. But our next model here, we're looking at the Sub-Saharan Africa model. One really unique thing that I want to highlight is this 3 CBD. We have our colonial CBD, the traditional, and the market. And when you're noticing this, notice that when we're talking here, the colonial CBD, you can kind of see this grid pattern. So this grid pattern is very much a European thing. As we get then into our traditional CBD, we can start to see the grid patterns kind of going away. Then the informal one, our third one, this is a market zone. There's a lot of informal economic activity happening here. We no longer have the grid at all. The other thing that we can see as a legacy aspect of these cities is, again, from colonization. It could be apartheid, segregation, but we have ethnic neighborhoods. Notice also how these roads are set up in a lot of these cities are dividing areas. And so this is all remnants of colonization, some places because of that Berlin Conference that we talked about in Unit 4. We also can see, too, again, a lot of squatter settlements, squatter areas, these informal satellite townships. These are going to be areas where people are living, where we don't have those utilities. And a lot of people might not actually own the land. One thing, too, to point out, let's quick connect back. So when we're looking at this, one of the reasons why our informal settlements for Sub-Saharan Africa or Latin America are forming on the outside can actually connect back to Unit 2 as well. So these areas generally have a higher population growth rate. We know stage 2 countries, we have a lot of urbanization that's happening. So a lot of people are moving to these cities. There isn't a place to live. So we start to see these cities expand through urban sprawl, and a lot of them are in informal areas. So we can kind of connect back to Unit 2 here, where we can see the impact of migration patterns based on that economic development, and then how that's shaping our urban areas. So, all right, we got one more model. I realize I'm going fast, but hopefully this is helping out. Again, I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'm just kind of going over all the content. When we get to the coot, I'll look at the chat more. So Southeast Asian city model here, notice we don't have a CBD. So if you're remembering like what's unique here, this is definitely a unique thing. We have a port, and the port is for a variety of reasons. Part of it's because of the geography. So a lot of these cities are just located on an island or a peninsula. Another one is because these cities often developed as trading posts. So this would be that historical connection that we can make, that a lot of Western countries wanted to trade with these different cities. And the last one is, as urbanization kind of happened, we expanded off of these ports, since that's the economic development, and that is all of the production and stuff that was happening there. So a lot of influences from colonial powers and foreign states. We can even see this alien commercial zone. So these are areas meant to kind of facilitate and promote trade with other countries. But we have this government control zone here. It's kind of overseeing things, just making sure there isn't some shady business or influence that they don't want. We can also too see we have some mixed density. So this is going to be, we have a variety of different income statuses and stuff mixed there. As you get farther and farther back, we get into more agricultural stuff. And we do have some squatter settlements as well. But a big thing that's unique here is we don't have that CBD. So kind of realize that for some of the uniqueness. All right. So those are our urban models. Hopefully your head isn't spinning. If you do need more help with the urban models, you can check out my ultimate review packet. You can also check out my video. It goes more in depth. If you're looking at this, I think it's 6.7. I'm blanking on the topic video of it, but it's those internal structures there. That one goes in a little bit more depth to it. The models, they could be on the test. They're listed in the CED. But if you're panicking, you're like, I have no idea right now about a ton of stuff, maybe wait a little bit on the models, focus on these themes and these patterns. That could be more important. So one of the things that we saw with the models and I'm going to keep going on. Again, I'm not going to look at chat right now, but one of the things we saw is density changed. And this happens for not just our models, but all different urban areas and rural areas, to be fair. This also connects into a concept known as the density gradient. This is this gradual change in the density. We're going from an urban area to the periphery. So the core in that center is going to have a higher density. As we move it farther and farther out, our density continues to decrease. So I have a kind of an example here that you can see. Again, nothing crazy, but as you're closer here, density is higher. Again, we're going to move farther and farther out. So one of the things that you want to have an understanding of is how the density of an area could impact it. So high density areas, generally here, individuals, where you have a lot of people living in an area, density connecting back to unit 2 as well. We're looking at how many people are living in this area. So we have people that are very close. Goods and services are very close. A lot of people might not drive their own cars. They're going to rely more on public transportation here. Things are close. And so we can have a lot of public services at our disposal. These areas generally are going to do a lot of planning to try and make sure that things are building accordingly. If they don't, they're going to run into a lot of issues because of how many people are living here. Public transportation is normally prevalent here. Generally, we can see cities with a high density area are very vibrant, lots and lots of different people and cultures. But again, if we have poor urban planning, that is going to create some problems here. And that could create food deserts. It could create uneven economic development, unequal social opportunities, and that could create a variety of different issues for cities. Now, as we keep moving out, eventually we get to medium density areas. So if at the core is our high density, the medium is located here. Now, all of a sudden, we don't see as many skyscrapers. We're not seeing buildings as packed. Our density still, it's not low, so we still have a lot of people. But now we're starting to see things shift. Maybe now we have some low-rise apartments or multifamily homes. We'll have some single-family homes that start to appear as well. They'll have a front yard and a backyard if we're looking at the United States, but generally not the largest. So here, people are going to start driving a little bit more. You still feel like you're kind of close to that urban area, but it's starting to feel more of like a suburban feel. Restaurants, stores, things of that are spaced out a little bit more. So we have a little bit more space, a little bit more driving. Now, eventually, we do get to our next one, which is going to be low density. The different densities, again, if you notice, I'm just kind of trying to explain the different themes with them or the different ways in which they impact an area and the people living there. That's kind of the thing to focus on here. So when we get to low density, here we have a lot of single family homes. We maybe have a few apartments, but they're not that tall. We also have a lot of space. So that average lot size that an individual has is a lot bigger compared to a medium or high density area. Generally, the higher our density, the smaller the lot size. So we're not going to build out as much, but we're going to build vertical. So we're going to build a lot taller. We're going to build up or down. We're going to go below. And that's because space is limited. So here you'll have like a big Target. You'll have a big parking lot there. We have a variety of different things that are spaced out. And this leads to more people driving. So we're having a lot more personal vehicles. Generally, there's not as much public transportation out here. We have a lot more green space as well. So just understand how the different densities can impact these areas and how they change stuff. Now, throughout this video, I've kind of been referencing infrastructure. And I want to quick highlight what infrastructure is so you remember it. Because this could come up with food in our agriculture unit. It could come up in our industrial unit. It could come up in this unit. Infrastructure is these key structures that actually help society function. This is going to be our roads, trains. This is going to be our utilities. Our society needs it to function. And the location and the quality of a city's infrastructure has a direct effect to economic development, social development, and spatial patterns for all countries. Societies that invest in infrastructure generally are going to see more economic development. They're going to see a higher standard of living. At the same time, the more infrastructure we have, the costs go up. And infrastructure isn't one of those super exciting things for a lot of states. So it's costly. It costs a lot. And it's not necessarily like for politicians going to win a bunch of votes. So generally, we can see sometimes not enough people put money into infrastructure. And when it fails, we can see, unfortunately, some disasters happen. Like my state, we had a bridge collapse years ago. That's because we weren't putting enough into our infrastructure, our roads and our bridges there to make sure we maintained them. So if it does fail, there's some pretty big consequences that could come. So realize that, the importance of it, how it can facilitate growth, also how it changes the spatial layouts. One actually example of that. So if we look at the United States, our cities and settlements are very spaced out. I mentioned earlier in the stream, if you go to places like London or just in general in Europe, and you're like, oh, I have to drive an hour to work. Oh, that's going to be a little bit more unheard of. They don't do that. They're closer together. In the US, our interstate system, form of infrastructure here, really changed how we live. Our cities are very spaced out. We drive a lot in the United States. Things aren't right by each other, and that's normal. And that's the impact of some of our infrastructure. Our interstate system changed where people could live. It led to more urban sprawl. It led to them more suburban feels, more rural areas. We're all connected. So that need to be right in that city isn't as prevalent. All right. Next thing we're going into is urban sustainability. And so with urban sustainability, this is getting down to this later half of the unit, but urban sustainability, remember, we're talking about promoting economic growth that's sustainable, social, sustainable. We're looking at our environment. Can we create a city in a way that is going to allow the future residents to enjoy all the benefits we have today? We're not depleting the Earth's resources. And when I mention economic sustainability, this is essentially saying, is the city supporting small businesses, entrepreneurs, local development in a way that isn't necessarily exploiting the Earth's natural resources? Like, are we having economic development for all people? Social sustainability. Are we making sure that our communities are safe and inclusive for all residents, that everyone has access to affordable housing, education, and healthcare services? So understand those different things there when it comes to sustainability. We're going to go into now a bunch of different challenges of it and conflicts and things of that. And you're going to get a lot of terms now. And before we do, though, I want to highlight zoning, because this is a big concept that kind of comes up when we're looking at this. So zoning here can happen in a variety of different things. This is how the government is regulating land. So it could be we're zoning it for commercial, agricultural, residential, industrial. What we're trying to do is designate land. And this is going to show what it can be used for. So if it is residential land, you can't build a Walmart in that area. It's zoned for residential. And this helps with urban planning and trying to keep things pretty consistent and make sure that things are on the up and up. One thing, too, that happens is we have governments that can become fragmented. So we have a variety of different governments that have influence, different levels of governments. If you see the term municipalities, these are local governments. These units, they're created by the state or national government. So like a town, a city, a village, these are other governments that are existing there. So one thing to think about when we're looking at the fragmentation of government is the reason why that can create challenges for a city is because if the national government is trying to influence different urban policies, the state's trying to influence, and then the local government, they're just trying to do what they think is best. But you have all these different levels now, and we have counties and regions and all these things happening too. They're trying to influence. That can create a lot of tension and conflict, and it can lead to some messy decisions. Generally, the national government, they can't have that big of influence. They're going to try and offer, hey, if you do this, we'll give you some money. So they're going to connect it to funding. If you don't do it, you don't get the funding. So that can create some issues with running cities as we're looking at it. And that can happen for a variety of different scales there. One quick example too, if you've ever played the game City Skylines, fantastic game, or even SimCity, one of the older ones, they use zoning. So like here you can see, like here we have an industrial zone. The blue is going to be commercial. Here is going to be our residential. These are areas where no one's living yet. Here's our roads, our infrastructure. Again, we can kind of see here, notice this person, when they're developing it, we have all of our commercial along these major highways, these interstates here. That is because it allows for a lot of goods and services to get quickly in and out. So the cool thing, even if some of these video games they play, they use these concepts to be able to actually play the game, because that's how the real world is. And that's the cool thing in this class. All right. Here we go. We're going to get into a bunch of different concepts now. We're going to be talking first about mixed land use. So this comes up when we're looking at sustainability. Mixed land use is going to be when we're going to take an area and we're actually going to have multiple different zones in there. It could be commercial, residential, maybe sometimes industrial. These are going to happen generally in medium or high density areas. And it's becoming more and more common. It allows the city to become more walkable. It puts things closer to people. And generally speaking, what's going to happen is on the bottom is going to be our commercial activities. These are going to be your businesses, your stores. And the reason why they're going to be at the bottom of the building is because that's where the foot traffic is. It allows people to quickly get in and to quickly get out. And then at stores, they don't care that they're on the street. They like that, even though there's more sound pollution there. Going up, then you might have offices. Again, you have a little bit of a view. They don't need the easy street access because it's just the people who work there are going there. Above that, then, would be the residential. The reason why they're going to be at the top is because then you can charge a higher rent because you have a view. And also that sound, that noise pollution doesn't necessarily get up there as much. So people are able to sleep easier. So with these mixed use buildings, these mixed use areas can create an environment where people can work, they can live, and they can eat, and they can enjoy their lives. And it stops then the need for public transport, or not public transportation, but personalized vehicles. And all of this can create some walkable cities. These are cities, walkable cities that are going to be, people can actually just walk around. Over time, we're continuing to see more and more of these cities try to promote it, where we don't have to have as much traffic, more opportunities, things are closer together. I do want to highlight too, depending on your city, again, some of these cities now are becoming so densely populated that we'll actually have buildings and stuff being built underground. This again is highlighting that high density. If we connect back to that bid rent theory, remember, as we get closer to an urban area, bid rent theory is from unit 5, but it comes back here. As we get closer to it, the price of land is going up. And so people aren't trying to get more and more land. They're going to try to utilize the land they have to the best of their ability. So you might have it where there's a parking garage underneath the skyscraper, goes underneath the whole underground, and then we'll build vertically up. Or we might even have some stores that are underground as well. We're trying to utilize it. Generally, if you're going to have a store underground, though, it's going to be in a high traffic area. So there's a lot of foot traffic there. So you're either going to want to be there or you're going to be on that street level, depending on where the traffic is. All right. Going on to our next thing, we have a variety of terms that I'm going to put on the screen, and I'll make it full screen so you can take some notes here. These are different things that can happen to change that cultural landscape of a city. One of the things that's happening here is with transit-oriented development, the goal here is actually to create more compact cities. This is going to use more mixed-use areas, more pedestrian-friendly communities. So you can see the definition there. We have urban planning that's happening, and we're going to put public transit stations throughout a city. We're trying to reduce that dependence on automobiles. The goal is that people are using more and more of our public transportation. It's reducing then some of the congestion that is on our roads. New urbanism and smart growth policies are very, very similar. So both concepts are trying to create a functional and sustainable urban environment. But new urbanism is more about like specific design, that feel of the neighborhoods. And smart growth policies are a little bit more of a broader approach, where it's trying to manage some of this development and use resources very effectively. So these are both ways, again, trying to promote more walkable cities, trying to make it so that things are closer together, and try to utilize space as best as they can. Now, one way in which smart growth policies, one concept that might connect is green belts. So these, depending on where you live, are more frequent or less frequent, depending on where you are. But a green belt is going to be this area of land, and you can see pictures on the screen right now, that it's been set aside. We're not going to be then actually developing buildings in these areas. So like London, for example, you can see that map. All these areas have been kind of set aside as green space. So these are a lot more common in Europe, but something to definitely understand there. All right. One next concept that we're going to get into that can come up when it goes to urban sustainability is infilling. Now, this, and the reason why cities do it, is they're going to be looking at space that's not being utilized. So like top picture there, you can see kind of this field. We can see some of the skyline right behind. And what's going to be occurring now is we're going to try to redevelop this land. The goal here is we're not trying to actually expand our city's footprint. We're trying to stay and build upwards. And that's reducing urban sprawl. Remember, urban sprawl is that expansion of an urban area, that unrestricted growth. So infilling is a way to actually look, do we have urban blight that's happened? Do we have areas where we have abandoned buildings? Do we have just abandoned lots? How could we repurpose that to try and actually create more walkable cities, build some mixed use buildings there, maybe public transportation, different ways of actually trying to create new development and new growth and opportunities inside our urban areas that would prevent us then from expanding outwards. So the goal here is to not expand a city's footprint. So have an idea about that one. All right. More vocab. We're going to have a lot of vocab. This last part of the unit, there is a ton. So I'll make it full screen. So if you're taking notes, it's easier to see for you. But what we're talking about here, one, we have some slow growth cities. It seems weird. You'd be like, hey, why would a city want to slow their growth? Don't they want to promote their growth? Well, the reason why we have slow growth cities is what they're trying to do is reduce some of this urban sprawl. They want to keep some of their green spaces. They also are trying to make sure they can manage their growth. If we have growth that happens too fast, one of the issues is that we run into more problems. Infrastructure can't keep up. Our utilities can't keep up. We might see more issues with squatter settlements and things of that nature. And so we actually are trying to slow growth here to try and make it so it is sustainable and we can make sure we're building it in a correct way. Growth boundaries get used to also try and create more of a walkable city. So growth boundaries, one of the things here that I want to highlight is one issue that could occur is if I put a growth boundary in effect, that is going to reduce urban sprawl because a growth boundary is saying, hey, you can't build outside of this area. It's protecting some of those farmlands. It's protecting more of those rural areas. The issue could be, though, now I'm going to continue to increase the density inside that urban area, which that could then also increase rent. It could also increase the price of land, which could unfortunately lead to gentrification or different things to occur as lower income residents might not be able to afford living there anymore. Since now land is becoming more scarce. We know what that bid rent theory, when the scarcity goes up and demand is high, the price goes up. The last one there on that term was smart cities. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. But this is just looking at cities that are going to utilize technology and data. They're trying to reduce their inefficiencies. So over time, what we're starting to see is just cities continue to use new technology to try and improve the quality of life. AI, for example, if we're using automation and computers, all different ways to try and understand, okay, what's happening with traffic during certain times? Could we reroute that? Is there different things we could do to try and increase that standard of living? Now, another concept that you might see on the test is brownfield, and it's going to probably be connected to redevelopment of brownfields. But a brownfield is this abandoned property. And this is an area kind of similar to infilling almost, but these properties in particular were used for industrial or commercial use. And they have been contaminated with pollutants. So it's a little bit more work. It's not as easy as infilling where it's like, all right, we're going to take this open alley or this abandoned building. We'll tear the building down, build a new one. Here we have to get rid of this hazardous pollutants. And the reason why a lot of cities will redevelop brownfields is by redeveloping them. Again, now it allows more land to be used by people. It just takes a little bit more time and money. So like if there's an abandoned gas station, cleaning that area up, making it suitable for residential or commercial use, then allows more people to have space in the city. So have an understanding of brownfields. They definitely could come up on the test. All right. Next questions that we're going to get to, or the next concepts, are actually going to deal with segregation. And I've already mentioned one of the terms, and I'll put the screen up again so you can see the different stuff here. But one is post de facto segregation or de facto segregation. So this is segregation that is occurring where there isn't necessarily a law or regulations that's causing it. What we are starting to see here is that there's people that are separated, and it's generally either by racial, ethnic, or socioeconomic lines, but it's not actually a current law or regulation. Now, some people will point out that, well, in the past, we've had things like redlining. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Blockbusting, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And that has led to these things. So even though some of our laws might not now be requiring people to live in certain areas, we used to have different policies that did do that. And so that impact is still here. Gentrification, on the other hand, if you see gentrification on the test, there's pros and cons on all these different things here when we're talking about gentrification. But this is where we have more affluent individuals moving into a neighborhood. So you can kind of see in this picture here, these areas look a lot more modern. We have this house kind of here, development starting to occur. What happens then is the price of land goes up, the price of rent goes up, taxes for people go up. And eventually then what starts to happen, lower income individuals unfortunately can't afford it anymore and they get pushed out. And this can cause tension to develop in some of these neighborhoods. And a lot of these individuals who can no longer afford their area, rightfully so, are upset because they've lived there their whole lives. All of a sudden, things start getting better, more stores start coming in, and now all of a sudden they get pushed out of their neighborhood. This can also lead to placelessness to occur. So, one thing you want to understand is that sometimes when cities are doing these urban initiatives, whether it be new urbanism or smart growth policies, they're trying to reduce urban sprawl. They're trying to improve the walkability. They want to try and increase transportation and want to increase mixed use development. It's all good, but it can also result in things like gentrification. It could result in a loss of this unique characteristics of these places. So, and that could create placelessness. If we lose all the things that make these neighborhoods unique, well, we could have placelessness. Cool. All right, going on to our next concept. And I already referenced it. It's redlining. I'll leave this up on the screen because you can see an example of it. So redlining is going to be, when we're talking about this process of essentially discriminating against people on the color of their skin. It used to be practiced. It's not practiced anymore. However, the impact is still there. So areas generally that were deemed high risk or low risk, the high risk areas had people who are minority groups and they were denied loans, which did not then allow them to be able to get new homes in different neighborhoods. Areas that were green were able to get lower interest rates, were able to get loans, which will allow them to then move and to continue to upgrade their single family homes and property. And this can lead to like generational wealth. So over time, what we started to see is that eventually when redlining went away, well, the people that were in the red areas, their property values were less and they weren't able to sell their homes for as much money. So the people who had been in the green originally were able to continue to resell their homes, get another one, which then allowed them to keep building wealth. So generational wealth could be an issue here. And there's other things that have kind of happened here, but yes, I did just quick look over. I think, yeah, redlining, definitely have a typo there. Oh, well, that's the fun of the wonderful things of live reviews. All right, these are also some concepts that you want to understand. So when we're talking here, blockbusting, we have this discriminatory practice. It contributed to white flight. It contributed to segregation of neighborhoods. I got a lot of text on here, so I'm just leaving it up so you can read it. But when we're talking about it, blockbusting is going to be this area where real estate agents are actually trying to motivate people who are white to leave. They'll sell it at a lower rate to them. Then they'll mark up the price to different minority groups coming in. And it led to white flight, which is this phenomenon of white residents migrating out of an area and going to the suburbs in larger numbers. You also could see environmental injustice and disamenity zones on the test. These are two terms that are listed in that CED. Environmental injustice, remember, is this disproportionate distribution of environmental hazards. So it seems weird to think about environmental injustice. What it's looking at is, where are pollutants located? Are they equally distributed? Are they away from all people? Generally, unfortunately, what we see is more marginalized groups or more vulnerable communities are more impacted by some of these environmental pollutants. They're more likely, a low-income area is more likely to have a dump near them. They're more likely to have factories near them. And they have less political power to be able to actually fight against that. And so that's one of the things that we can see. Last one there, disamenity zone. We kind of talked about when we were looking at our urban models, but remember, these are areas within a region that lack these public services, that quality infrastructure. There's a higher concentration generally of poverty, crime, maybe sometimes even squatter settlements. So those would be those areas there. And just as a reminder, when we're talking about squatter settlements or informal settlements, these are areas where people have built homes on the land, but they don't actually own them. So they don't have a legal right to the land there. All right. Response to economic challenges. So this again is getting down there towards the end. One way in which cities can actually counter some of these problems is they can use inclusionary zones. These are areas where they're going to put policies in place, these legal requirements. So the government's going to step in and they're going to try to incentivize developers to create affordable housing. They're going to try to create housing for more lower income families. And all of this allows them more mixed income communities to evolve. And when we have mixed income communities, the success rate is a lot higher. If we have communities separated by economics, one issue is then those lower income communities, well, less businesses often locate there since there's less money to be spent. So actually creating more mixed income communities allows businesses to be there, which allows more job opportunities for people, allows more goods and services, and then can lead to more economic growth for all people. So this is a big thing that starts to happen too when we're looking at the end of the unit. We're talking about urban sprawl and ways we can counter it. And cities do a variety of different things that we've already talked about. Growth boundaries would be one, farmland protection policies, trying to protect those rural areas, those farmlands, not allowing commercial or industrial buildings to come there. The redevelopment of brownfields would be another one. Infilling would be one. And all of these are ways in which a city can be more sustainable, which will help reduce their ecological footprint. If you're not familiar, ecological footprint, that's going to be the amount of land and resources that a city uses to actually support its population. So have an idea of that. Our very last thing is going to connect into data. I'll quick put up on the screen. We've talked about these before, and then we're going to get to our Kahoot. But when we're looking at data here, we're looking at quantitative and qualitative. And there's different ways in which cities can use data here. So qualitative, remember, is going to be opinions. It's not clearly measurable. Excuse me. And quantitative is going to come from like our senses. These are things that are easy to understand. We could debate why they're happening, but we're not necessarily debating the content of it. So for example, like the median income in an area, that would be quantitative. Qualitative would be, well, how do people feel about the traffic? How do they feel about what's happening in society? Do they approve right now of what the government's doing, or do they not? That would be all qualitative. So important to note that. All right, we're going to be switching over to the Kahoot. One reminder, again, we are going to be having that exclusive live stream tomorrow. All I'm going to be doing is going through the theories and models that you need to know. So if you have that ultimate review packet, you can check it out. It's going to be at 3 p.m. We will also have tomorrow at 7 p.m. The Unit 7 review. And then Monday, we're going to have two more bonus live streams that will be for everyone, where I'll take like a practice test and maybe talk about FRQs, because I've seen a lot there. So again, check out that ultimate review packet. Make sure you come tomorrow. If you're not able to come tomorrow, no worries. I will post it once it's done in that ultimate review packet in the packet. So I know YouTube's been putting ads and stuff on. You won't have any ads, so you won't have to worry about that. Cool. All right. If you are watching the recap, enjoy. Check out our live streams tomorrow. We are going to play Kahoot now, so I'm going to cut the video. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Mr. Sinn. As always, have a great day. All right, let's switch over to our Kahoot. So switching over to the Kahoot, get that up and running. Woo! That was a lot of stuff that we just talked about. Cool. Also, if you notice, we already have a lot of people in the Kahoot. Once it pops up, that is because this has already been posted on that Discord server. So Discord server, completely free. We have over 20,000 people now in the server, which is just crazy. But sign in. So there's the Discord server. You can see I posted it here. Right now we got a bunch of people. I'm sure we'll have a bunch of people in the chat. Right now they're talking about Kendrick Lamar and Drake. The live stream, lock in. Yeah. There we go. Got a bunch of people there. All righty. I will also start looking at the chat a lot more during this now. Trying to help out. All right. Let's quick get our Kahoot code. Again, if the Kahoot gets blocked out, if we max it out, I'll post the Kahoot in the ultimate review packet so you can do it in there. All right. Discord shout out. I got a bunch of people now in the Discord. I can still see you guys there. Finally. You're there. I've been too scared to show you guys. Yes, here they all are. They're all excited. They're talking. All right. We're going to get started. Okay. All right. First question coming up. Here we go. All right. Again, all these connect back to our CED, that course exam description. So question 1, which of the following would best illustrate a squatter settlement? All right. Some people in chat asking about remote sensing. Remote sensing could be used to collect data. Absolutely. We could look at how urban sprawl is happening, the impact on maybe the biodiversity, that ecological footprint as we're expanding over time. So yeah, we could definitely use that. All right. And here we go. The answer is over 1,400 people have already answered. It would be blue here. So this is these settlements where we don't have a legal claim. So oftentimes we might have more of an informal economy. We're going to lack probably different infrastructure. So for example, like public utilities, sewers, electricity, things of that nature, plumbing. And again, you don't have a connection. You don't own that actual land there. So there's also risk of being evicted. All right. Here we go. Next question. Which of the following concepts explains the changes in density gradient? What do we got? What do we got? Real quick, shout out to Mr. Hart, best APHG teacher at Content High School. Shout out to you. Where's the CBD? CBD or CD? Sorry, CED. Yeah. All right, it's bid rent theory. So again, when we're talking about the bid rent theory, I didn't talk about a ton today, but remember that bid rent theory. As we're getting closer to the urban area, the price of land is going to go up. And so what we're going to see is buildings are going to increase their height. They're not going to build out much. They're going to try and maximize their space. So our lot sizes are smaller. We have more and more people living there. As we move farther away, that density starts to go down. And so the land value, it gets cheaper. And that all connects into Von Thunen. It connects into our city models. It connects into all these different concepts here. So the bid rent theory does impact that. Density gradient. This is going to be that change going from high density to medium to low density. So like if we look at a city, you can see like the urban core, that CBD, that central business district right in the center there. A lot of high density buildings, a lot of skyscrapers. As we move farther out, the buildings get smaller and smaller and smaller. There's also more space in between. So we have that density gradient there. All right. Here we go. Going on to our next one here. One more second left. Yes, majority of people did get this. So which of the following is not one of the ways in which a city can prevent urban sprawl? Creating more edge cities, expanding public transportation to the suburbs, all of that would lead to more urban sprawl to occur. Reason why is it's expanding there. So the more connected these cities is, that's why like the United States, we have a lot of urban sprawl in different areas because our infrastructure is so good and our cities, there's so much connection. You can easily get in and out. So people will live farther out, which again expands that city's footprint. All righty. Going on to our next question. The map below shows segregation in the United States. Which concept contributed to these segregated neighborhoods? So what do we got here? All right. Quick shout out to Mr. McDonald at BVC West. So shout out there. Yes, shout out. Municipalities are going to be kind of types of governments there. So like created by the city, the state, or the federal government, the national government. All right. And it is all of these. So if we're looking at it, blockbusting would lead to then segregated neighborhoods. Redlining would lead to segregated neighborhoods. White flight contributed to that. This is an image from the U.S. Census. It's the racial dot map. So we can actually see, like, so here's New York, but we can see that New York is still fairly segregated, and this is based on race. So our neighborhoods here, if we zoom in, if we're looking at a very local scale here, we can see that people generally are still in segregated areas. However, legally, you can live where you want. So this could be an example also of post-de facto segregation. Connecting into more concepts. You hate this unit. I am sorry that you hate this unit, but you've got this. You're going to do great. Confidence. All right. All the unit review videos are done. So today I also just dropped to an FRQ task verb video. I'd highly check it out, recommend checking it out. It goes over define, identify, compare, describe, and explain. And not just explain, but explain the degree, explain one, explain a limitation, a variety of ways in which you could see it. So I definitely check out that video. And I connect it back to that 2023 national exam. But all the unit videos are up. The ones that are not on YouTube are in that ultimate review packet. So as a thank you to those who are purchasing the packet, all this stuff is free. The packet I do charge money for because that's what supports the channel and allows me to keep doing these things. So all the rest of the unit videos, the summary ones, are in the ultimate review packet. All right, so it would be urban renewal here. Excuse me. Sorry there. So gentrification seems to be like our next most popular one. Gentrification, remember? So here the question saying this process of improving, revitalizing, deteriorating parts of an urban area, clearing out old buildings, urban blight. This is that process of urban renewal. Now, gentrification could occur. Gentrification is when these more affluent, more wealthier individuals are moving into an urban area, causing then the price to go up and pushing lower income individuals out. This prompt, or the statement that was here for the Kahoot, was specific of just revitalizing this area. So this would be an urban renewal policy. But gentrification could be a consequence to this. So gentrification could happen because of it. So hopefully that kind of helps there. All right. Will you create a new review video? Yes. I really did want to redo the video that covers everything AP Human Geography because I want to get a lot more stuff in it. I'm not going to be able to do it this year. I just don't have the time. So unfortunately, it won't be ready for you guys, but eventually I'm hoping next year to have an updated one there because that one definitely is my old kind of style. So I'll have a new one. That video takes an insane amount of time to make. So it'll take too much time for me to get it out this year. But if you're looking for any of the other units, they're all in that ultimate review packet. So check that out. All right, majority of people did get it. So which of the following is more likely to see foreign state embassies? London, the United Kingdom. Reason why? Anyone know what term these cities are? What term could we connect to? What do we got? What do we got? Okay, also special shout out to Grace. I was going to pin your comment. I just saw you in the chat. Grace is one of my students. So thank you, Grace, for showing up and studying tonight. Shout out to you. You are awesome, phenomenal. You're going to rock this test, Grace. I know you can do this. So props to Grace in the chat. All right. And it is a world city. Yes. London, the United Kingdom here. Well, not the United Kingdom, but London. London would be a world city, United Kingdom there for location. So New York would be an example there. Paris as well. So these areas, world city. All right. Bunch of people saying world city. Excuse me. All right. I saw a good question here on will there ever be any sort of question that isn't related to the CD? No. The College Board, that course exam description, all the content on the test has to connect back. Think of the CED as your study guide. This is what the test is on. So that's why we're focusing on these concepts there. That's why these unit videos, when I'm making it, I'm just going through that CD. I'm copying things over, trying to then change it, add some more details for you to help study. Ultimate review packet. It's all aligned to the CD. I don't use a textbook there because the CD is what the test is going to be on. All right, majority of people got it. Remember, range. Real quick in the chat, what do we got? What is the difference between range and threshold? What do we got? I got some people asking about it. What do we got? Range and threshold. All righty. Range is the maximum distance people will travel. Yes. Threshold is the amount of people. So the amount of people needed to support like an industry, a business, a service. So range is how far. Generally, range is measured too by time. And that's because people like us, that's what we're going to focus on. If I have one McDonald's not McDonald's. If I have one Chipotle, Chipotle is awesome. If I have one Chipotle, although it's inconsistent, whatever. If I have one Chipotle that's 10 miles away from me, and I have another Chipotle that's only 2 miles away, but that 2 mile away Chipotle is going to take me 20 minutes. And that other Chipotle that's 10 miles away is only going to take me, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. I'll take the 10-minute one. So Time is generally what's used for range, especially with convenience things. All right. Going up. Here we go. Next question. Yeah, threshold again. People are saying it's the maximum of people to support this. Not the maximum, the minimum. This is the amount of people you need to be able to support it. People saying, are the study guides based on the CD? Yes, all the study guides, everything in the ultimate review packet has been designed around that course exam description. If it's mentioned in that course exam description, I'm talking about it in that packet. So those study guides, those answer keys, those unit review videos that are on YouTube. Tomorrow, when we do that exclusive live review for just those users, students, it'll just be focusing on models and theories listed in the CD. Yeah, central place theory, perfect. Majority of people got it. Likelihood of two places interacting. So that's our second one here. This would be more of the gravity model. So remember, gravity model is going to look at the distance between there and then the amount of opportunities. And so it'll see like, how likely are you to interact? Central place theory, looking at that spatial distribution there. All right, next question up. Question 9. Here we go. All right. Which of the following would not be one of the impacts of a state following the rank size rule? So we're looking here at the rank size rule. 15 seconds left. Almost done. What do we got? Oh, people saying they misread the question. No. Yeah, this is a not question here. So it is blue. So we have production, specialized services are clustered in one large city. That would be more of that primate city rule. So remember, primate city, we have one major city that has double the population as its second largest city. Rank size rule is a little bit more even economic development has occurred. Things are more spaced out there. So that largest city, the second one is half, the third is a third, the fourth is a fourth. All right, it's May the 4th, people. What do we got? Gravity model. How does it help us understand things? May the 4th be with you. Good old Star Wars. Oh, if I planned better, I would have put all my little Lego Star Wars heads and stuff up. Should have themed it for Star Wars. That's okay. We got a picture. All right. May the 4th. Thank you. Thank you. Gotta love Star Wars. Yes, it is the likelihood of places interacting. I've already explained this one, so we'll go on to the next one there. But the brave dingo will lead in the pack. All right. World cities are blank and help promote blank. So what do we got? Kind of got two parts here. What do we have? So check it out. All right, 6 seconds left. Ooh, thank you. Oh, it's hot. Okay. Thank you. I got some new hot tea to try and help the throat. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Yes. So when we're looking here at hierarchy, remember hierarchy, we're talking about like hierarchical diffusion. We have a system here, a power structure that is set up. So you have like here, a world city would be at the top. Then we have our larger cities, goes down to eventually those smaller ones. So when we have diffusion occurring, they're going to go through there. And globalization is this connection of our cities. It's the connection of different industries and trade. We're going to talk about globalization a lot tomorrow when we look at Unit 7. So check that one out there. All righty, here we go. Let's go here. Some people are asking about rent being more expensive during CBDs with the bid rent theory. Then why do people of lower class, or we'll just say lower economic status, not class, but lower economic status, live near the CBDs in models like the concentric zone? So that zone of transition in the concentric zone model, the people that are living in that zone of transition, if that's what you're referencing, they don't own the place there. So generally those are going to be a little bit like older apartments, really packed together. They don't have a lot of amenities. They don't have a lot of space there. It's a transition. The goal is that you're there for a little bit and you can get out of it. So their rent actually might not be as high because when you have a taller building there, You're not providing as many. The rooms are smaller. You don't charge as much for rent. And so, yes, the land itself costs more, but these individuals that are living there don't own it. So you have a landlord there, someone who owns the entire building. And they're getting, if you have like 200 apartments in one thing or 300 or whatever it may be, you're getting rent then from each one of those individual people. So even if you're not charging them as much, if you add it all up, it is a lot that they're getting there. So that one's a little bit different when we're looking at rents, and that factors it in because the people renting don't actually own the land there. All right, good. Majority of people didn't mix this up. These are two I think are really easy to mix up on the actual AP test. So one thing I just want to kind of highlight here, always, always, always read very carefully. When we get to Tuesday, underline as you go. You see mega city, you underline that. And the reason why you're going to do that is it's going to slow your brain down. You're going to make less mistakes. It's really easy to flip some of our concepts. Remember too, the College Board, they know assimilation, acculturation. Students kind of mix them up. Interregional, intra-regional boundaries. Students mix them up. Mega city, meta city. They want to see, do you really know it? So oftentimes some of these terms will get paired together in multiple choice questions. They're not trying to trick you. They're trying to see, do you actually know what you're talking about? You should know the difference between a mega and meta city. And so you might see if a question's talking about them, that it connects to both. You got to figure out, well, which one is actually mega, which one's meta. So underline, make sure you don't miss things, and you want to get those easy points there. I sound like I'm in the trenches. Is it just because of my voice or just trying to like go back and forth with everything? I don't know. Hopefully the audio is good. Hopefully you're having fun too. That's the goal. You guys are here on a Saturday studying AP Human Geo. If you're having fun, if we're working here, that's all that matters. All right. And it is these connections between. So remember, site, we're talking about absolute location, really. We're looking at things that are specific to that area. Situation is going to be connections. That's relative. So I'm looking at like economic trade. I'm looking at different influences from surrounding settlements there. Site and situation influence where our cities, where our places are located. It influences our spatial distribution. It influences I meant to say population distribution and even our density. All right, which of the following best describes a boom burb? A boom burb. What do we got here? Quick shout out to Jeffrey or Jeffer, class 2 best AP hug. That's from Maddie. So shout out from Maddie. I apologize if I mispronounced anything there. Yeah, not Bloomberg. It's Boomberb. Yes. All right. Rapidly growing suburban cities developed its own unique identity. Yes. Perfect. Majority of people got this. We'll go on to the next one there. This blue one, which is the most common one, other one, that'd be like more of an edge city, not a boom burb. So that'd be more of an edge city there. Hey, on behalf of Texas, thank you. Thank you, Texas. How many people are in this Kahoot? I'm not sure. We might have maxed it out. Every day we've kind of maxed out the Kahoots where we actually can't get more people in. We crash Kahoot, but that's part of the fun of doing it live. All righty. What is centrifugal and centripetal forces? Remember, F for force, P for pull. Centripetal forces are going to pull and unite things together. Centrifugal are going to create friction. It's going to divide. It's going to force people apart. Not physically, but again, I mean, it could be physically, I guess, but it could be cultural factors. It could be political factors. A variety of things could cause that. Saw some people asking about post-Fortis methods of production. We're going to talk about that tomorrow with Unit 7. So I'm not going to go into Unit 7 right now. All right. So for here, densely populated, yeah, if we're looking at this, most likely residents have access to public transportation, might not have their own car. So we reviewed earlier today the different things of high, medium, and low density. How does that impact people that live there? How does that impact the different settlement patterns, the different buildings, the land use patterns, all these different things there? So that would be high density. All right, 16 out of 25. Here we go. What do we got? Ooh, anyone know the type of map? What type of map are these? I'll mark your comment. What do we got? Also, shout out to all the people too, real quick in the chat who are helping people out, staying on point and focused. I really appreciate it, and that's the cool thing of having our community here. Is the goal is to remain positive. The goal is to try and help each other out. We're all here because we want to succeed on this AP test. So I realize I'm missing a lot of your questions. It's really cool when I see people actually answering the questions for other students and helping them out. So I really appreciate that, and you guys are phenomenal. And it is a chloropleth map. So this was the first one I saw when we're looking at this. So this would be a chloropleth map. You can see a variety of different things here. So food deserts, I actually kind of forgot to go more in depth into that in our last kind of overview, but we did talk about it in Unit 5. So make sure you spend some time about food deserts because it's mentioned in the CED for Unit 5 and Unit 6. So you want to make sure you understand those concepts there. But we can see here, food deserts, how it's impacting. Generally speaking here, well, we're going to have some more health risks. We could also have some lower income individuals there. Residents here would be more at risk for obesity that we could see just based on our data that we have. All right, going on to our next question. Question 17 out of 25. All right, there we go. Sorry, my mic. I had to quick reset the mic. I was having some issues there. All right. So what's one of the problems for gentrification? We can see some images here. So yeah, people are kind of noticing that. Over time, we can see originally we have maybe some more unique cultural landscapes here. As time progresses, we start to become more uniform. We might lose some of that unique sense of place. We could experience placelessness that we talked about, that loss there of those historical cultural landscape. And again, gentrification is going to lead to where, unfortunately, lower income individuals are going to be pushed out. As property taxes go up, they can't afford anymore their mortgage, or they can't afford the property taxes. And so we start to see more affluent, more wealthier individuals come in. So that would be a consequence there of gentrification. Yeah, so some generally for food deserts, I should have explained it maybe a little bit more, but great job helping people out. Thank you so much for answering questions. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we're looking at an area where we lack fresh food. Generally, people might not have cars or access to public transportation. They might have access to public transportation, but we have an area here where we have lack of fresh food. And so that means we're generally depending on dollar stores or gas stations, things of that nature. All right. And when we're looking at it is urban sprawl. So this would not be an example of our wonderful sustainable development. When we're looking at this, one thing to point out, infill development, remember that's a concept we reviewed. Infill is where in an urban area, we're going to look for land that's underutilized, maybe vacant buildings, blighted buildings, or maybe there's just an alley that doesn't have a building on it. And we are going to then build there. Maybe it's mixed use buildings, or we're going to try to create our city more walkable. Instead of expanding outwards, we're going to try and utilize land that is not being utilized in our city. Redevelopment of brownfields. Remember, brownfields are abandoned areas, this land that has some hazardous pollutant on it. So generally, like there was some industrial production there or manufacturing or maybe a gas station. That area is polluted. We are going to clean it up. It costs more. It's going to take some time, but we clean that area up and then we try to revitalize it, build new buildings there to, again, stop growth outwards and then focus more inwards. Green belts as well. That is going to be when we are putting land aside that won't be developed to protect some of that natural landscape there. Brave Dingo holding on strong. Do I have an Insta? I do have an Instagram. I haven't used it a lot. I also do have a TikTok. I did see a couple people create some TikToks and tag me. So after this, I'll duet them. So I do have an Instagram and a TikTok. YouTube's the main one I use, though. All right, here we go. All right. So which of the following would not be an example of quantitative data? This was at the end. You did not hurt my feelings. You're good. I actually liked your comment. I thought it was funny. So you did not hurt my feelings at all. I enjoyed your comment. It was good. I liked it. In the trenches, taking grenades. All right. Perfect. Majority of people got this. Remember, quantitative data is numbers, it's facts. That's the stuff that we're looking at. When we are looking at qualitative, it's going to be more opinions, things that are up for debate that, yeah, aren't as concrete. All right. Next question coming up. Question 20 out of 25. That's a good question. I don't know. The real question is, are you an AI? Like, how do you know? What if we're all just in the matrix right now? All right. So city model here. We reviewed these when we were talking about stuff. What do we got? City models. Approval ratings. The reason why approval ratings I had as kind of a discussion, approval ratings, depending on who you're going to survey, it's going to change the approval rating. So every time I do a survey, it's going to change. It's going to differ. Like if I'm looking at something quantitative, like I'm looking at the median income, it's not up for debate. The median income is the median income of that neighborhood. But in approval rating, I could choose who I'm surveying to get that rating. I might only survey certain people to get a more favorable outcome, or I might survey other people to get a least favorable, or how I word my questions could actually influence the answer as well. In AP psychology, we talk about the wording effect. That'd be an example there. But again, the median income of a neighborhood, there's only one way we're calculating that. So that's not up for debate. Approval ratings, you could. Yes, this is that Latin America city model. So great job there. Majority of people did get it. Awesome, awesome job. Some people asking, am I a teacher? Yes, I do teach. I have some of my students, like Grace. Grace, she's one of my students. I know she's on this exam right now. She commented. I saw her. I haven't seen her in a little bit though, so maybe she signed off. I don't know. All right, up next, another city model question. The city model is 3 CBDs and was influenced during that colonial era. What do we got here? A shout out here to Miss Stout. So shout out Miss Stout. Thank you for being an awesome teacher. Shout out to you and to also your class. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. So shout out there. All right. And it is the sub-Saharan city model. So again, we can see our 3 CBDs. That's one of the unique things here. So definitely make sure to kind of remember that. Again, we have these informal settlements on the outside showing that high urbanization and that growth there. All right. Okay. So which one goes outwards? Another city model question. Trying to remember these. These are a little bit kind of, you just got to practice them. Focus it, practice it. All right. All of these too, one thing to remember when looking at urban city models, try when you're studying, focus a little bit like, how have they changed? Maybe how are they applicable? How are they not now? Like technology, infrastructure are big things that have changed some of these models and how accurate they are at actually showing different settlements. And it is the concentric zone model. Again, we have these zones, these circles, kind of similar to Von Thun a little bit there. We got the circles, the rings that develop similar to a tree. So maybe you can remember that one as the tree, where we're looking at the different rings that form over time as a tree grows. All right, here we go. Question 23 of 25. What do we got? Which level of government cannot directly control city planning, but can indirectly do it through funding? So this is some of that part of the unit where we're looking at the challenges that can come up due to the fragmentation of government. So we have a variety of different things happening here with our governments and this fragmentation, which leads to then some issues as cities are trying to do maybe a certain aspect, but the government's coming in a different higher up one and changing it. And this would be the federal. So the only way they can really impact there is actually through funding. So they can have these mandates say, hey, if you do this, we'll give you some money. Even if the city's like, well, that's not what's best for us, but they might want the money. So they might still do it anyways. All right, question 24 out of 25 coming up. All right, we're looking here at local policies to create incentives to create affordable housing for low-income residents. What do we got? Is it possible? It is possible. Is it going to be fun? Maybe not. Honestly, right now we are kind of in the end game. A lot of this stuff now, your teachers have put in so much work this year. You've put in so much work this year. A big part that's going to happen now, it's up to you guys. This is the time to lock in. Yes, I realize there's a ton of other things you can do, but you still have time to excel on this test. What you need to focus now is locking in, study a unit, focus just on like the big concepts. This is where like my unit review videos are excellent because they're just quick summarizing the whole unit. If you have that ultimate review packet, you can get the different study guides that go with it and take notes. Take practice tests, then see what you got wrong, correct it. Focus on going through College Board and practicing different things in there. You guys still have enough time. Yes, we're getting down there, but there's still plenty of time for you to do well on this exam. So don't give up. Focus. You can do this. You got to lock it in. All right. And it is inclusionary zones. So the big focus of inclusionary zones are trying to make sure that all different people can actually live and be successful in an area. Oftentimes, then we'll have a variety of different housing that's created, and we'll try to make sure it's affordable for lower income individuals. All right. Up next, here we go. Question 25 out of 25. All right, great question here. I would do both. Honestly, at this point, if you can take a full practice exam, maybe you have a Princeton review book, maybe you bought my test pack, which has a bunch of tests, maybe it's College Board, maybe your teacher gave you some resources, maybe you're using the 2 full practice AP tests in the ultimate review packet, whatever you're using, take it, go through and then correct it. And this is the big thing, correct it and see which units you got wrong. The nice thing there, what you can start to see then is where do you need to study? So if you notice, oh, I got a bunch of questions from unit 4. Well, now you know study unit 4. So it can help you actually be more efficient in your studying. So both are really helpful for practices. All right, let's quick talk about this one. So I'll put it back up. We have a split here. So Edge City, here we're looking at this beltway, these cities outside that's the city limits. So generally, a big beltway, remember, is going to be that highway or I'm blanking now. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Interstate in different parts of the country. Again, we have dialects, so different parts call it different things. Green is looking at a rapid growing suburban area, kind of located far away. That'd be more of maybe like a boom burb, but specifically connected to the Beltway is going to be more that edge city. Generally speaking, too, edge cities are going to form their own kind of specialty. Maybe it's going to be a college or a university. Maybe it's a mall. Maybe it's a different like business sectors. So boom burbs, edge cities, exurbs, those are all some of our different land uses, our settlements there that you want to be familiar with that are in that CED. Cool. Let's look at our podium quick. Here we go. All right. Yes. All right. We got a bunch of people. All right. Congrats to the Brave Dingo. They were in charge really this whole time. I mean, leading the pack. They hung on. They were able to fight everyone off. Got the win. Excited Rhino in second and the Creative Seal in third. Really quick, guys, too. Just remember, tomorrow I'm going to be doing at 3 p.m. that live stream for the Ultimate Review Packet, people. You'll find it in the Ultimate Review Packet. So it's every theory and model that you need to know. So that's at 3 p.m. If you get the packet today, you'll be able to get it. If you get it tomorrow, you'll be able to. If you already have it, great. If you don't get it, no worries at all. We are still going to have our Unit 7 live stream at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. So 7 p.m. tomorrow night, you will have it there for you. All right. And really quick, so if you're going to head out, by all means, head out. Do we still have people in Discord and in the Unit 6 chat? I have a feeling yes. All right. Yes, Discord. Okay. What I need the Discord people to do quick, and I think this is going to be for a TikTok. So, all right. Pause typing. I can see everyone now like freaking out. Okay. All right. Don't type. Okay, I'm going to need the people in Discord. What I need you to do is start saying a couple things. You're going to type when I tell you to. Either we did it, be like, we're finally done, like it's over, something along those lines. So I want to film that, and then I'll use that. You will be in an actual video there. So perfect. That's right. We did it. All right. If you can't tell, this video is going to be posted the day of the exam probably. So this will be a short. Wow. Okay. Now we got a ton of people in the Discord like flying here. So here's our Discord right now. Just flying. Let's go. We did it. The exam is done. Perfect. That should be enough. We got a bunch of people in there. Thank you very much for doing that. It's over. It's over. We did it. Yes. All right. Cool. Thank you all for joining me today. I realize I didn't get through here. Actually, I don't. I was going to also do the chat live, but that one would mess up the camera. It'd turn into Inception because it'd be filming itself. It would turn into a whole thing. Okay. The Discord's still just flying. So cool. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm going to sign off because I got to get ready for the 2 live streams tomorrow. Unit 7 is going to be at our normal time tomorrow at 7 p.m. Again, at 3 p.m. tomorrow is going to be that one for the Ultimate Review Packet. So check those out. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry if I didn't get to anyone's questions. You are all amazing. The Kahoots you can find in that Ultimate Review Packet. Have a great day, everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow. Get some sleep. You've got this, geographers. Keep up the good work. Finish strong. You're going to do great. I know you are. You've got this. All right. I'll talk to you all later. Have a good night and goodbye.